Hello.
Welcome, everybody. Happy Sunday, I hope. Feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like. If you want to say hi to the group, maybe warm up with our voices.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you, Martina. Here in the United States, it's Father's Day.
Same here in UK.
Also in the UK. Well, happy Father's Day, Robert.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Father's Day.
So yeah, my daughters are going to come over and bring some food. We were trying to figure out where could we socially distance, physically distance, and enjoy a meal together. And turns out my dining room is sufficient. So we're going to try to do it there. But it's still just takeout food here in San Francisco. You can't.
Yeah.
There's a few, unlike Spain, there's not a lot of terrazas. I don't know, not so much in England too, I don't think. But so you have a few places on the sidewalk, maybe have a few tables, but more or less the restaurants are still just takeout.
Yeah, same here. But the bars are open. A few bars are open.
Where you can go inside?
No, just outside. Fortunately, the weather's been nice, so people have been drinking outside.
Outside on the street corners, huh?
Yeah, lots of street corner drinking.
Now what about in Spain? I hear the estado de alarma is finito. No, it's over. And what does that mean? You can't get arrested now for being outside? That's good.
Yeah, you can go inside restaurants and bars actually.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a big difference. Okay. Good luck.
And there are lots of terrazas, so bars outdoors.
So if you can go inside, I guess that kind of begs the question as to whether you guys want to start going inside Saladana. I imagine the weather though is very nice right now, right? Okay, well, good. Good to see you all. Maybe just a brief word about the meditation. One of our Sangha members, Alberto, he had recommended that I read a book by Bhikkhu Bodhi, a very important monk, American monk, who has translated many of the Buddhist writings from Pali to English or edited books from Pali to English. And the theme of this one is, let's see, maybe I'll just tell you the title. Title says it better than I seem to be able to summarize it. The Buddha's teachings on social and communal harmony. Social and communal harmony. And maybe Alberto was not only sending it to me, but he was sending it to all of the United States right now, because we are in a state of a lot of lack of harmony. There's a lot of tension here right now, which I actually find very fascinating, because I think maybe the tension is going in a direction that will result in more harmony if it continues in the direction it's going, I think, which is mainly a difference between people who are white and everybody else who are not white. And anyways, it's what's happening here in the United States, and I'm sure some of you know about it peripherally by reading about it. It's not quite the same as, the COVID-19 crisis, but that is also present here. And in fact, the United States, next to Brazil, it's spreading faster than I think any country, any of the kind of developed countries outside of Brazil. It's still spreading very fast here. And people are states, we have these 50 states, they all have their own laws. And many of them are opening up, letting people go to bars, letting people go to rallies to see President Trump or whatever, while their cases are going up, while their deaths are going up. So there's also there's a disconnect between reality and what people want to do, right? It's very Buddhist, right? Where we are taught to try to be with things as they are, not how we would like them to be. But here people want to be free of this shelter in place, so they're just going out and, COVID be damned, you might say. But anyways, I thought I would read a little bit from this book, and it's literally, or I could just open up a page and stick the finger, and it's something useful. It's such a wealth of information. So during the meditation, the only instruction, so mostly we'll just do the samatha or calming practice, trying to let go of the thoughts, connect with the breath, connect with the body, whatever you like best. But then as we get towards the last, maybe third, I'm going to add awareness of thought. Okay, where what I invite you to do is, if a thought arises, or when, because they will, right? When the thought arises, if you could just kind of ask yourself, is that a wholesome or skillful or good thought, a beneficial thought? Or is it a unwholesome, unskillful, not so good thought? And watch for the second thought, right? Watch for the second arrow where you might say, oh, that's a bad thought. How could I have such a bad thought? I must be bad. Because there you've got another bad thought, right? On top of the bad thought. So again, it's much like any practice where at some point you just want to observe. You just want to notice, and then just whatever comes up first, wholesome, oh, not so wholesome, or skillful, or not so skillful, or good. If you want to just be real simple, good thought, or bad thought. But if it's a bad thought, don't take it personally. Don't get mad at yourself for having a bad thought, because we don't have control over our mind. Our mind thinks what it wants to think most of the time, right? And sometimes it might not have the best thought, but we want to be aware of that. Okay, that's all. That will be the little twist about the last third or so. Are there any questions, doubts, fears? Hopefully not. Okay. I will set our timer. Whoops, where is it? So we will meditate for 30, 31, 32 minutes. Okay, so real quickly, I'm just going to check these chats. Anything? Somebody asked about Seattle. Yeah, we've got a kind of an anarchist group in Seattle that's taken over the center of town. I think they're calling it an autonomous zone, a police-free zone. Anyways, okay, find your comfortable posture, something that you can maintain for 30 minutes without moving. This is so we can really watch the mind. This practice is so much about getting to know the nature of our mind. So let's ground ourselves in the moment, starting off with the attention in the belly. You could even put your hands on your belly if you want. Create a little sensation there. Maybe take a couple deep breath so you really feel the breath, feel the movement of the belly. Maybe you can notice with the deep breaths, the movement of the breath coming in through the nostrils, passing down through the throat, the chest, into the belly. And you might even imagine, as Suvacho led us a couple weeks ago, that the breath actually enters and leaves through the top of the head. Like there's a line of energetic breath from the top of the head into the belly and back out. Normally in Vipassana or mindfulness meditation, we let the breath be as it is, but there's nothing wrong with strengthening the breath so you can really connect to it. And once you have found it, once you have that connection, then you can let it be. Last night we were on a Zoom call with teachers from all over in Tenissara, an English former nun, very active, an activist. She had us breathe deeply 5 times. There's nothing wrong with that, to really ground ourselves in the present moment, connect with the breath, connect with the life force, the life energy. Now maybe we do a quick body scan, just starting at that crown of the head, dropping into the face, the neck, the shoulders, the arms, the hands, the torso, the buttocks, the legs, the feet. And then try to feel your whole body, your whole posture at once. Feeling the weight of the body, kind of sensing the form, the shape, without thinking about it, just a rough sense of the shape. And remembering that this makes a very good anchor. If you like, you can use the posture or the form as an anchor when your mind drifts away, starts thinking about something, planning, judging, worrying, daydreaming, whatever it might be. Just let that go, and you could come back to this posture, this form, this shape. Or you can use the breath. Pick a spot where you enjoy the breath, or you can sense it, experience it easily, with ease, maybe even with a little curiosity and joy. all the while relaxing. If you notice your body tensing up, the shoulders, the jaw, just relax. As Suvacho said, it's the first of 3 important qualities we want to bring to our practice. Sense of relaxation, ease. The second one being a brightness, an awareness, an awakeness. And the third one, joy or kindness. And then if the body doesn't work as an anchor or the breath, you can also use sounds or the process of hearing. Just waiting for sounds to come to you. You don't go to them, just come to you. So we'll do some samatha practice, just calming the mind, calming the body, returning again to your chosen anchor. Experiencing the body or the breath or hearing again and again. And if you judge or criticize or get frustrated or whatever, just notice that too. Hold it gently while it's there and then let it go. Release it. If you are still experiencing lots of thought, you can always use labels to try to connect with your breath or your body or the sounds. So for instance, with the breath, you could just label the inhalation, inhaling or breathing in, exhalation, breathing out, or just simply in, out. If your attention is at the belly, rising, falling. And when you notice thoughts, we can just say thinking, thinking, and then returning back to the anchor, in, out. Can be helpful. And once your mind understands that we're trying to stay with the object a while, you can let the labels go. So if you are experiencing a little more calm, the mind is a little more stable, you want to add this instruction. It's simply to wait for a thought to arise and then to be aware of, you might say, the nature of the thought. Is it wholesome or unwholesome? Maybe in Spanish, this might be sano or insano. Or it might be neutral. So when it arises, we just notice. Maybe we say to ourselves, sano, insano, wholesome or unwholesome, and just let it go. Go back to the anchor, go back to the object, whatever you've chosen, the body, the breath, hearing. And noticing if any judgment comes up, especially if the thoughts are unwholesome, unskillful, which means usually that there's some greed or some aversion or even some confusion. Just watch your mind. If they arise, then there'll be a second thought, maybe a judgment, and you could say again, unwholesome, insano. And then just try to let them go. See how that is. I do recommend too, if there's a fair amount of unwholesome thoughts, try to use the body as the anchor. Feeling the posture, feeling the body. Good. So wherever your mind might be right now, your attention, let's come back to the body, finishing up our formal practice where we started, grounded in the here and now, using the body. Maybe come back to the belly, feeling the movement of the breath. Maybe imagining that you can fill or infuse the entire body with awareness, with kind, loving awareness. Noticing how the sensations might be different now than as you remember them from 30 minutes ago. And then imagining that you can extend your awareness a little beyond the physical form into the energy field of the body, just beyond the skin. Maybe there's some tingling you might notice. And then imagining you can extend this kind awareness to include everybody on this call today, meditating together, practicing, not only for our own individual benefits, for our own well-being, but for the well-being of all beings. Just reminding ourselves that as much as this might seem like a selfish practice, it is probably the most selfless practice I know of. And when you hear the sound of the bell, just noticing what might come up, thoughts, sensations, expectations, wants, aversions, whatever. We just see them arise and pass away. So thank you very much. I very much enjoy practicing with others where, especially if I'm leading a meditation, I need to stay present. So it's good for me. It's good for my practice. I am curious how that was to be a little more precise with our awareness of our thoughts. This particular instruction doesn't exactly fit in perfectly to one of the four foundations of mindfulness, as you might recall, body, the second one being feeling tone, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, mindfulness of mind or mental states, mindfulness of Dhamma. But I do see it as kind of a mix between the second and the third, where if a thought is unwholesome, theoretically, it would produce kind of a unpleasant feeling tone, right? Maybe a bodily sensation even, kind of or contraction or pushing it away. And then a thought is a mental state, so it's the third foundation. So we're kind of applying the second foundation to the third foundation with this practice. And, you know, one thing I noticed is, like, if my mind went to what it has a habit of doing, which is to figure things out. My mind loves to solve problems or, you know, plan, to strategize. So even thinking of Saladana, where I've tried now this last week to put in motion getting the bathroom sink installed, right? And my contractor from before has agreed to do it, and I've ordered the sink, but it still hasn't arrived. But my mind wants to go to planning, strategizing. You know, should I send the Fabrica an email? Should I ask, you know, one of you to call them or whatever? So, you know, is that an unwholesome or wholesome thought? You know, in its proper place, it's probably wholesome. You know, it's going to need to happen. But as I'm sitting here meditating, I probably don't need to be thinking about it, right? I'd be better off, you know, meditating, putting my awareness in the breath or something like that. So I wouldn't, you know, it's not harsh. It's not like it's unwholesome. It's not like it's bad, but it's not exactly appropriate in this moment. You know, so for that, I sort of consider them unskillful, you might say. A skillful practice would be if I can stay with the present moment, stay with the breath. For instance, if I'm doing samatha practice, calming practice, that would be a skillful state. And if my mind is wandering and I'm planning on how I'm going to renovate Saladana, that's not a very skillful practice in this moment. So it can get kind of subtle like that. And the suggestion, the teachings is that we get to know our mind more and more, and we get to know our thoughts more and more, and then we develop discernment as to whether or not this is helpful or not, whether this is wholesome or not, whether this is skillful or not. And the instructions clearly are, if it's not skillful, if it's not appropriate, if it's not helpful in this moment, we abandon it, right? We renounce it, we let it go. And this is straight from, as we know, the teachings of the Buddha. This is what he is thought to have said. So before I open up a little bit of the teachings, I'm curious whether anybody would like to share about their experience, or if they have any questions, especially about what we just did, this meditation, or even your meditation at home. Would anybody like to share something? And I think you guys can unmute yourself. Yeah, you are able to.
Okay, I have a question.
Nara.
A general one.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know if you have ever said it, but I think, like, in general, like related to meditation, I've heard from, I don't know where, like this you are not your thoughts, right? Mm-hmm. But like, I find it a bit like excusing, or I don't know, like, it does not make too much sense to me, because like, okay, like when somebody, for example, like racist thoughts, you know, then honestly, then somebody, I mean, it's our classification, but it's like, then somebody is a racist. I mean, like, you know, for me, I found it it's a bit excusing, you know? I mean, it's like, I think, I don't know, whatever, these people are bad, but I'm not a racist because I'm not my thoughts, you know? I mean, so I would be curious what you would say about this.
Okay, yes, that's a very good question and a very common question. Um, so the idea is, and I'll just summarize it this way: we are not our thoughts, but yet we are responsible for our impact. We are responsible for our actions. There is karma, right? So both are true, and they can be rather paradoxical. Um, the risk, and I'll put this more in kind of like modern psychology terms, the risk of identifying with our thoughts and then saying, oh, if I have a racist thought, therefore I'm a racist, this is not wholesome. This is not helpful. This is not skillful to shame ourselves, to degrade ourselves, to hate ourselves for thoughts that we have. Okay, that would be kind of putting Buddhist philosophy in kind of modern psychological terms, right? We don't, shaming ourselves in this way is not generally helpful. There is considered to be positive shame, but in this case, not so helpful. And from a more, I don't know if I'd call it literary, no, not literal interpretation or investigation of our thoughts, if those thoughts truly were you, I would imagine you would not have those thoughts. You know, if you don't want to be a racist and you believe you're not a racist, then you wouldn't have racist thoughts. But the fact is, we do have what you might be racist, or there's a term that you often hear called implicit bias. And this could apply to many, many things. But where through conditioning, causes and conditioning, remember in the Theravada tradition of Buddhism, which we mostly follow here, nothing arises independent of causes and conditions. Nothing arises on its own. So there's causes and conditions, social, family, what we learn in school, our history books, all this kind of stuff. And it then impacts how our brain thinks, what it thinks about, what it generates. And it could have some biases against, in Spain, maybe the gypsy people, the gitanas, or here, in America, maybe towards African-American people or whatever. It's just a bias that has formed as a result of causes and conditions, which are not our fault. We don't have control over those things. Okay, so they arise, and the key, which goes to the practice we just did, is to be, so this is our awareness. This is the observador. This is the part of us, our brain, that can observe, and it sees this implicit bias arise, it notices it, and then with discernment, we can ask ourselves, is this wholesome, unwholesome, or even is this true or not true? And we decide. And if it's not true, if it's not wholesome, if it's not helpful, if it's not going to cause no harm at all, then we want to let that go. We want to abandon it. We want to renounce it. If we identify with it, we could cause ourselves to get into this downward spiral. And when we're feeling bad, right? Depression can set in, anger could set in, frustration, victimhood, all sorts of things that isn't going to help the cause. It isn't going to help us be less racist or have less implicit bias. But when we take this kind of detached sort of view, where we're here, some people say we're awareness, we're kind awareness. In many Buddhist philosophies, there's not even that. It's just kind of empty. But we do seem to have this ability to observe. When we're there and the thought is kind of over here, we can hold it a little more lightly, but still be responsible for it and push it away. An example would be a thought comes up. This, maybe somebody's approaching us on the street and they look kind of, maybe their clothes aren't new and, maybe a little disheveled. And a thought might come up, ooh, this person might want to rob me. Right. And then that does happen. I've been robbed twice in Spain. So I know it does happen occasionally. So, right. So a thought might come up, this person wants to rob me. Now, if we act on that thought in a way that's harming, like maybe yell at the person or call the police or, do something like that. And it turns out he or she, an innocent person. Now we've done harm by identifying with that thought. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on about this. It's such an interesting topic, and it's something that comes up every day, almost every hour sometimes, where a thought comes up as a result of causes and conditions, and we may believe it. We may identify with it. And the practice, the belief, the point of view is that these things are empty. They're not us. They're not self, anatta. They're not, we're not our bodies. We're not our thoughts. At best, we are awareness. If we are anything, we are awareness. We're this observador, this observer. And then with that, we decide, is that wholesome? Is that helpful or not? Could this cause harm or not? And sometimes we do have to take precautions. Things happen. I don't think if we protect ourselves from harm, that would be considered causing harm in Buddhist teachings. We do need to do that as well, because we also need to not harm ourselves. So I don't know, Laura, that I could go on and on and on trying to find that one that is just going to make the light bulb go on. For me, this was the most difficult of the three, especially of the three characteristics of impermanence, of unsatisfactoriness, and of not self, that for me to get my arms around. But it does come. And I'll just end with this. And we are still responsible for our actions, for our speech, and for our thoughts if those thoughts result in action or speech. We are still responsible for those things. We can't just say, oh, they're not me, so it doesn't matter what happens. No, that is not Buddhism at all. A little paradoxical, but both are true and can be true. And we see that after a while. It becomes more and more clear how we're not our thoughts. I mean, shit, I have some of the most horrible thoughts. If I were to think on my thoughts, I should just close my computer and go crawl in a cave somewhere and,
Okay.
Yeah. And we want to kind of really, this is why it's so important to take these things with kind of an attitude of curiosity as well as kindness, kind of amazement, sort of like, wow, my brain can think of that. How interesting. I hope that was helpful. It was a lot of words, but.
No, it was.
Was it?
I like it. Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Jim, I have a question.
Yes, Dennis. Thank you for joining us again. It's good to see you. Happy
Nice.
Father's Day, Adopted Father's Day.
Thank you. This goes to the comment you made about skillful, I'm going to use the word practice for lack of a better word. And you and I are similar in the sense that I want to plan and figure things out. And I happen to be in the middle of building a cabinet. So when I come to the sitting, I've got in my head all the things that I'm thinking about how to solve some of the issues with building the cabinet. And to me, I understand that thoughts in and of themselves are neither skillful or unskillful. And that for me, what feels, and firstly, as to when I'm planning in the middle of a meditation, I get a constriction. It kind of is like a hardening for me. And for me, what feels skillful to me is noticing the thought and being kind to myself. And whether I didn't ever have the impression that having a thought is unskillful, but that allowing it to pass, and as Pema Chodron says, it all being the big okay. It is sort of different than what you were saying, and your gestures about renouncing, abandoning, tended to me to be sort of have a kind of a judgment involved. That the implication is sort of, if you have that thought, there's some kind of a judgment, as opposed to a simple observation, being kind, and coming back to my center. And I just wanted you to go into that a little bit.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I love Pema Chodron, by the way, and she is, her teachings have saved my ass on more than one occasion. And I would put her teachings definitely at one end of a spectrum of kindness, where she really is about kindness and about allowing things. And in fact, she uses a term, Dennis, I'm sure you know this, but of leaning into the pain and stuff. So she really even kind of goes to that. And on the other end of a spectrum that I would work with really are the teachings of the Buddha, at least as far as we know in the Buddha's words, where he taught in a little bit more of a forceful way, where those words, abandon and renounce, those are translations of the Pali terms that you would find in a book that would be like the one that hopefully I'm going to get to by Bhikkhu Bodhi, where it's a little bit stronger, where I think he even has 5 levels of things that we should do with thoughts, where the last one is, if the others don't work, crush the thought. Right? So it's rather strong as compared to Pema Chodron. But to get more, to address more about, for instance, the planning to what to do in a cabin or whatever it might be, in Vipassana, we would just be aware, or even you could say mindfulness, we would just be aware that the thought arose, we would notice it, and the noticing alone should cause it to go away.
Right.
And so you don't really need to renounce it or abandon it. Nothing too forceful is needed with something like that. And with things like planning or maybe even creative ideas, I have even heard of people who might keep a little notebook, a little quaderno, right? And so they'll, if they have a thought during their meditation that they think is valuable, so that they don't obsess about it throughout the whole meditation, they'll just write it down during the meditation. Maybe take a break, just write it down, go back to the meditation. If you find that your thoughts are generating a contraction, as you've pointed out, then I would argue, and it's just my position, that probably is falling a little bit into the unskillful, or the, maybe better, unwholesome, because it's now causing a contraction. There's a bodily signal that this thought may be falling a little bit more into an unwholesome realm, kind of an obsession or a worry or something like that. Now, and you can, and then we just feel the contraction, which should let go of the thought, and we can move on. We learn skillful ways to work with our thoughts. Thoughts are always going to be part of our meditation practice, and we want to work with them in the most, it's our relationship with them that's most important. So we want to develop skillful means to work with them. And you could also even, maybe your intention is to allow your mind to think about the cabin or be aware of the cabin and the various things you want to do. And so you just sit, and then if ideas come up, that's fine. It's part of your practice. You've included it kind of in your attention. Mm. If we're doing a samatha practice, though, the practice really is to try to keep coming back to an anchor and pushing away, abandoning the thoughts. That is what that is. It's to try to become single focused on one thing, calm the mind through concentration. This is the type of practice, samatha, which is a little different than vipassana, where it's more broad, more open, whatever arises, we allow in.
So I have a question about what you just said, with the distinction between allowing to dissipate and pushing away. Mm. How do you push away a thought?
Yeah, you just a little more force. It's like, especially if the thought is kind of clingy, if it's got some apego, we say, right, in Spanish, right? It's a little sticky and it won't go away. Sometimes if you just try to let it go and come back, it follows you or it doesn't go away, right? And so we need a little more, it's like you just kind of push it away with the attention. I sort of imagine it's like I create this kind of force field with my attention. I'm going to push those thoughts away. And then, I'm with the body, I'm with the breath. And it comes back for sure, or another thought does. And this is part of the game. Part of the practice is what is the appropriate level of fuerza, of effort that we want to put in, right? And like sometimes I'll be meditating and it's starting to get a little too relaxed, and I start to go, I sort of go like this. I'll end up almost doing a face plant of just because I'm just so relaxed, right? There's a case where I need a little more fuerza, I need a little more effort, right? And this is right in the 7 factors of awakening as well, is effort. And so we want to find that balance. If there's tension, probably too much effort, we want to relax, right? But if you're falling asleep, there's not enough effort. You want to stimulate yourself a little bit, you want to energize yourself. And it's kind of like trying to find that balance where you're able to be with the breath or whatever your object is, you're able to be aware and relaxed at the same time. And you're kind. Now that word judgment, the translation of the word, better translation of the word in Pali, and it's not coming to me, I can sort of see it in my mind, the Pali word, but the better English word is, and in Spanish as well, is discernment. Mm-hmm. We want to cultivate discernment. Well, judgment, and I don't know, juzgar, I think juzgar in Spanish also has kind of a negative quality to it, right? A lot of times. It's like we judge you're bad or whatever. And so discernment is a little more neutral. It's just trying to see, is this wholesome or unwholesome? And we want to cultivate the wholesome and we want to abandon the unwholesome. This is the Buddhist teachings. We want to cultivate the skillful and abandon the unskillful. And it's all just a practice. I would say though, Dennis, if it's causing you some contraction, probably better to let it go. And, or if you have to, kind of give it a nudge. But or feel it. Feel it is the best, really, because there's the contraction. You've got something you can put your attention on. It's obvious. It's a sensation. And you just feel it. The feeling, the experiencing, the knowing will allow it to relax. And at that same time, the thoughts will go away. Yeah. At least for a moment. I call that, you get 2 for 1. You get a relaxed chest and the thoughts are gone.
Jim, can I ask a quick question? Just very, very quick, just on what you were saying about in this practice of pushing the thoughts away. and the distinction between actively pushing thoughts away rather than letting them go, and how that differs from aversion. Is that not, like, if we're pushing thoughts away, it's like, I don't want this here, you're avoiding it, it's aversion. What's the distinction there?
Yeah, it's a very good point. The distinction is in the attitude of the mind. So if I'm pushing away the thoughts because I'm averse to the thoughts, I don't like the thoughts, I hate the thoughts, then aversion is going to arise for sure. It has arisen already if I'm doing it that way. But if I'm just kind of, the phrase that came to mind was like bearing down, but that sounds a little too strong. If I'm just generating a little more effort to try to stay with the object, you know, like if I have a thought that's just very insistent, it just wants to be thought, and it's like, enough already, basta, okay? You know, maybe I've got to give it a little bit of a push, but not with aversion. Even sometimes you could say, and I've heard this from many teachers, we can talk to our thoughts. We can talk to our mind in this way. Not now. I will think you later. Okay, when we're done meditating, I promise you, we will review, you know, this works good with the cabin, right? I promise you, I will return and we will think about it. But right now, go away. You know, so it's a little bit harsher, but we're still with love. You know, it's like sometimes with our children or our pets or whatever, or our spouses, you know, we have to do that. We just have to say, you know, not now. I need a little time for myself or whatever, without aversion, with love, but nevertheless, martite, bete, right? It's like, you know, so it's the quality of the mind in that moment. And to watch for that. And if it's like, you fucking thought, you know, well, there's probably some aversion at that point. And so then maybe we want to sit with that for a moment. You know, and what's so fun about this for me, I don't know, is just, this is a lifelong practice, right? We just keep refining it. We keep practicing and we keep noticing, and hopefully we don't judge. Yeah, and you know, you'll know if there's aversion, you'll probably get that contraction type of sensation. Oh, okay. But if you just kind of apply some effort and there's no contraction, in fact, maybe even the opposite, then it's probably right effort. It's good effort. It's skillful effort.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, our time just went, whew. I didn't even get to do my share screen, but this was fun. I enjoyed this very much. Next week, I will hopefully open up this book by Bhikkhu Bodhi, and we'll have a chance to talk about it. And we really did. We talked about what is in the book without me. Maybe I'll just real quickly going to show you the, let's see, if I push this, let's see. Yeah, real quickly, I can just, hopefully, can you guys see a table of contents? Do you see a share screen in the table of contents?
Yes.
Okay, just real quickly, you know, you'll just see. So personal training, you know, we got generosity, virtuous behavior, removing the defilements of the mind, loving kindness and compassion, the slaying of anger, you know, that's kind of a strong word, right? The slaying of anger, removing anger, dangers in anger, proper speech, well-spoken speech, don't create arguments. I mean, it's just filled. This I'll end with this. You know, there's a quote. I'm not sure who actually said it, but I love it. She was a Christian. This woman, she's a believer in Christ and so forth. And so she is quoted as saying, "I love Christ, but the Buddha left instructions." And it's true. There's just so much instructions on how to live in a way to be free from suffering, to be happy, to be even joyous in our life, right? And to be good people, you know, whatever that is. So next week we'll explore a little bit more this topic. Anyways, if there's nobody who has a question or anything, we'll do a quick metta meditation. And then after that, we can form the small groups and you guys can visit. Does that sound all right? I don't see. Okay, very good. Thank you for the thumbs up. So yeah, find a comfortable posture. And for me, I also like to put my hands in this practice near my heart. Feel the area of the heart center. So I think everybody knows, but just in case. So with this practice, this is a cultivating of wholesome qualities of the heart. This one, metta, is loving kindness or goodwill. And here we use phrases, wishes for ourselves and others. And we start off saying them out loud. This is a practice too that can become a samatha practice after a while, where you're just feeling the sensation of loving kindness. But it usually starts off with words. So let's start off with ourself. Very important. May I be well and healthy. So you can repeat them to yourself. May I be well and healthy. May I be safe and protected. May I live with ease. May I be happy. And next, let's do a shout out to those people, those beings who are on the front lines of the fight, I guess you might say, against coronavirus, against COVID-19, the nurses and doctors and technicians and those workers who run the risk of exposure, and those families who have lost their loved ones. Let's send loving kindness to them. May they be well and healthy. May they be safe and protected. May they live with ease. May they be happy. And now imagine somebody in your life, a being in your life who you are having some difficulties with. Con la que hay un problema. So maybe a resentment, a fear, a hurt. Just recall this being, whoever it is, and let's try to send metta to them. May you be well and healthy. May you be safe and protected. May you live with ease. May you be happy. And now for all beings in all directions without exceptions, may all beings be well and healthy. May all beings be safe and protected. May all beings live with ease and comfort. May all beings be happy. And finally, dedicate the merit of our practice today, our Sangha, the teachings, and our Buddha nature. Share this, dedicate this to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war and violence, racism and discrimination, and free from coronavirus. And may all beings find their path towards the end of suffering, path to peace. May all beings be free. Okay, well, thank you very much. So I will put you guys in some small groups. And let's see, I got a little request here, okay. Maybe first, well, that's right, I can't unmute you guys, so. Breakout rooms, so if anybody wants to say something to the big group now, you can do that, but otherwise you're gonna end up in small groups, and if you don't want to, no pasa nada, you can not join. So let's see here. Yeah, that looks good. Here we go. Okay, open our rooms, see how that goes. Go, Lewis, you can do it.